The room is full. Someone to your left is telling a story about their weekend. Someone to your right laughs at exactly the right moment. You're here, present. Except you're not. You're standing approximately 2 meters behind yourself, watching, evaluating the angle of your smile, adjusting the weight of your nod, calibrating how interested you look versus how interested you actually are. You haven't heard the last 30 seconds of the story. You were busy monitoring the performance of listening. You watch yourself being yourself. Everyone does. And everyone thinks they know why. The convenient answer is self-awareness, emotional intelligence. You're just attuned to how you come across. A modern virtue. Except the person with emotional intelligence knows when to observe and when to stop. The spectator doesn't stop. The spectator has no off switch. It is not a tool you pick up. It is a function that runs. And right now, it's running you. The episode 5 introduced you to the balcony, the therapist friend, the one who stands above the parade, analyzing the floats, never joining the procession. And the episode 6 showed you what happens when that distance becomes the architecture of connection, how understanding someone can become a way of not being with them. But there's a question neither episode answered. What happens when the parade stops? When there's no crisis to manage, no friend to fix, no empathy to perform? What happens on a quiet Tuesday with nothing to observe except yourself? The spectator doesn't deactivate, it redirects. When the external target disappears, the observation turns inward. You become both the surveillance camera and the monitored hallway, the watcher and the watched. And the hallway never empties. Consider the loop. You enter a social situation. The observer activates. How am I coming across? Was that the right thing to say? Do I seem relaxed? You adjust. You perform relaxed. Then you observe the performance. Was that too performed? Do they notice I'm performing? And then you notice that you noticed. The mirror extends inward. No end. This is not self-awareness. Self-awareness is a flashlight. You turn it on, you see something, you turn it off. The spectator is a surveillance system. It records continuously. No one watches the footage. No one flags the anomalies. It just records. The cost of the recording is the thing being recorded, which is your actual life, passing by while you annotate it. William James, the father of American psychology, described the self as a relationship, not an object. 2 parts. The I, the knower, the one who observes, the subject, and the me, the known, the one who is observed, the object. Healthy consciousness shifts between them. You observe yourself, you return to being yourself. A rhythm. The spectator breaks the rhythm. The I never hands control back to the me. The knower becomes a permanent resident. You don't return to the experience. You narrate it from the booth. James also described the social self, the version of you that exists in the eyes of others. We have as many social selves, he wrote, as there are groups to recognize us. The spectator manages all of them simultaneously. A control tower with too many screens and no chair. Then there's the default mode network, the brain's self-referential processing system. When you have no external task, it activates. It replays conversations. It projects scenarios. It evaluates your social standing. In a calibrated system, this network cycles, activates, processes, deactivates. Rest, repeat. In the spectator, it doesn't deactivate. The DMN becomes the permanent operator, not a mode you enter, a mode you can't exit. This isn't a malfunction. Every tradition that seriously studied the mind recognized the same function. The question was never whether it exists. The question was what happens when it doesn't step aside. The Buddhist tradition has a name for part of this: Sakshan. the witness mind, the part that watches without participating. In practice, the witness is cultivated deliberately. You sit, you observe thoughts arising and passing. You don't engage, you don't judge, you watch. The purpose is liberation, distance from suffering, freedom from identification with the noise. But here is what the tradition understood and the self-help industry forgot. The witness is a tool. It has a specific function. When the tool becomes the operator, when the witness doesn't step aside after the observation, distance doesn't liberate. Distance becomes the architecture of your removal from your own experience. The witness that was supposed to free you becomes the warden of the cell. In episode 5, we visited Kierkegaard's balcony, the aesthete watching the parade, the therapist friend analyzing chaos from a safe height. But that was a glimpse. This episode owns the building. Kierkegaard described 3 modes of existence: the aesthetic, the ethical, the religious. Most people assume the aesthetic is the hedonist, the one chasing pleasure, sensation, the next hit. But Kierkegaard meant something far more precise and far more relevant. The defining characteristic of the aesthetic mode is not pleasure, it's distance. The aesthete turns reality into material. Life becomes content. Experience becomes footage. The self becomes a character in a story the aesthete is both writing and watching. They are not inside the moment, they are curating it. Every experience is processed through the question, how does this look? How does this read? What does this say about me? You don't avoid life through hedonism. You avoid it through observation. By turning every experience into something to be analyzed, you never actually have to be in it. The review replaces the concert. This is where Sartre meets Kierkegaard on the balcony, and neither likes what they see. Sartre's concept of bad faith, mauvaise foi, is usually illustrated with his waiter. The waiter who plays at being a waiter, who performs the gestures with slightly too much precision, who is, in Sartre's words, a waiter in the mode of being a waiter. Not a person who waits tables, a person who has become the concept of waiting tables. You do this with yourself. You perform authenticity. You perform spontaneity. You perform presence. With such precision that the performance becomes its own form of inauthenticity. Not because you're faking, because you're directing. The director is always outside the scene, and you are always the director. The spectator stands at the intersection of Kierkegaard and Sartre. From Kierkegaard, the distance, the aesthetic as a mode of being, not a defense. The spectator doesn't retreat from life because it hurts. The spectator retreats because observation is safer than participation. From Sartre, the performance, bad faith not as deception, but as over-identification with a role. The spectator has over-identified with the role of watching. Kierkegaard said it is possible to build a palace of ideas and live in a doghouse next to it. But the spectator builds something more sophisticated. The spectator builds a palace of observation and lives in the security camera room. Warm, well lit, with every angle covered, and no windows. The cost of the spectator is structural, not situational. It's not that you miss moments, it's that you are architecturally unable to be the subject of your own life. You are always the narrator, never the character. The camera, never the scene. When you watch yourself have a conversation, you're not in the conversation, you're reviewing the dailies. When you watch yourself feel something, joy, grief, desire, the observer processes the feeling before it reaches you. By the time you register an emotion, it has already been annotated, cataloged, cross-referenced with previous entries. The raw data is gone. What you experience is the metadata. A child runs into your arms. You catch them, you hold them, but you never felt the weight of them hitting your chest. You were composing the moment. The most intimate moments, the ones that should arrive unedited, unprocessed, first person, arrive pre-intercepted. Someone tells you they love you, and for a fraction of a second, before the feeling lands, the observer checks. Is this the right facial expression? Is this how a person who just heard "I love you" is supposed to respond? It's not that you don't feel. The system is intact, the signal arrives, but the observer stands between the signal and the experiencer, like a translator who won't stop translating. The meaning is preserved, the experience is not. This is the paradox of the spectator. The more you see, the less you are. The more precisely you observe yourself, the more distance the observation creates. Clarity doesn't close the gap, it is the gap. The patterns are visible if you know where to look. Rehearsed spontaneity. The moment you decide to just be yourself and then monitor the performance of being yourself in real time. The authenticity that arrives with a director's commentary track. Post-conversation autopsy. The hours after an interaction spent replaying what you said, how you said it, what they thought, what you should have said instead. Not reviewing, operating. The surveillance system running its nightly backup. The feeling about the feeling. You feel sad. Then you evaluate whether the sadness is appropriate, proportionate, correctly expressed. The original emotion becomes a case study in its own reaction. None of these are habits. You can't break them with effort any more than you can stop your heartbeat by deciding to. They are the visible surface of a function that runs too deep to reach with advice. The observer is not a layer on top of you. It has become the operating system. And the operating system doesn't take commands from the user. The room is still full. The story is still being told. Someone to your right is still laughing at the right moment. You're here, present. Except now you see the distance. Not as a choice you're making, not as awareness you should turn off, but as a function that runs in the background of every room you'll ever enter. The camera you didn't install. Recording. Always recording. The spectator never misses a frame. It has never been in one. You're going to replay this. Not the ideas, your performance of watching it. Whether your expression looked engaged, whether you seemed thoughtful enough, whether the right reaction was visible on your face at the right time. That's not a criticism. That's the machine, running, right now, on both of us.